Hey, all you hot listeners, this is episode 13, unlucky 13, of Husband and Wife Talks. This is Adam, obviously, introducing this episode to all of y'all. This is actually the first episode where Marta and I will be away from each other, so we'll be Skyping, so sorry if the audio is not as good of quality as you've come to expect from this very solid podcast. But I think you'll enjoy this discussion. This is actually a discussion that we sort of gained from a book given to us prior to our wedding, talking about just being together as a couple. And the main overview of this is transformation and how, you know, when you get married, people expect there's going to be this large transformation, and that may not always be the case. And we discuss just transformation throughout our lives in general and what we expect going forward. And there's tidbits here and there that we branch off and have different conversations about. So I think you'll really enjoy this. So I really hope you enjoy the show. Hey, Marta.
Hey.
How's it going? You normally say, hey, Adam. It threw me off. You're throwing me off. This whole situation is throwing me off because this is the first time we're recording not in the same room. I'm staring at you on a computer screen. But how you doing, babe?
I'm doing tired. I am tired.
Off to the races, I see, folks. But do you want to explain why we are not in the same room right now? What exactly are you doing? Because I am in our apartment all alone without you.
You're in the living room, and I'm on a bed.
So, yeah, basically we're recording from two different rooms in our apartment. No, that's not actually it. Marta took a Labor Day weekend to go visit her parents, doing a nice thing and seeing her parents, and I'm sure it's going well because I haven't heard from her that often, so she's probably busy chatting it up with her family. That's normally how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Lots of chatting.
Lots of chatting.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
But yeah, it's been fun seeing everybody, chit-chatting it up, hanging. Oh, we had crabs. Oh, I love crabs.
The fact that you're coming back from Denver make you miss them even more? Were they just even more delicious now?
Yeah, I don't think I had crabs that often when I lived in Maryland. It was always like a few times a summer, but it is nice since I don't know if I've seen crabs anywhere. I mean, they probably have like the fake Maryland crab meat, crab cake, Maryland style crab cakes in some restaurants, but I'm not that adventurous since I would just rather have them in Maryland.
I always forget this, but is crab season normally the summer? Is that when it normally happens?
Yeah, it's usually maybe late spring to early fall, but mainly in the summertime.
Look at you knowing all about the crabs.
I used to work at a
really
crab. I used to work at that seafood crab place, remember?
Yeah, I mean, you were just well-versed in crabs just because you worked tirelessly at that place. Am I right?
Yep. Put in all the hours.
Oh, I'm not going to say the amount of hours just because I'm not going to put it out there because I'm sure you're going to give me the death stare if I ever do that.
It was just too many hours to keep track of, folks. That's just the truth.
I'm sure. So, anything exciting happening over there? Just crabs, that's the main thing, chatting with family? Is that basically it?
Pretty much.
Nothing to share with the hot listeners?
I had Cold Stone ice cream today.
What? You had Cold Stone ice cream? Wow, we were doing so good. The last episode, we were talking about how great we've been feeling, working out nonstop, eating healthy, and then here we go. I just got blindsided by this too, folks, that my wife, Marta, had Cold Stone today. I'm kind of jealous. It
was delicious.
Except for now I realize that I'm becoming more and more lactose intolerant, so it probably wouldn't have ended well for me. So maybe I'm just getting worked up for nothing.
Yeah, you probably would have had some, and then your stomach would have hurt, and it's just not worth it. Not worth it,
indeed. But I think we are recording this week. We didn't really have an idea for what to do for this episode. We have an idea now while we're recording, but coming up to it, we didn't really. We decided, since we couldn't go on any adventures this weekend together because we're apart from each other, it's so sad. But funny enough, we had this idea prior, but there was a book given to us. It's called From This Day Forward that my mom gave to us before we got married. I think it was like an engagement present or around there when we were getting closer to the wedding, and has these sections about what it's like to be with your partner and trying to give you advice throughout it, and it kind of leads to discussion points, talking points, because not everything you read in this is 100% you have to go. It's kind of leaves it open-ended from what I've seen so far in the entries. So I figured it'll be a nice little change of pace, try it out. Maybe people will like it. Maybe it'll become more of a regular thing, throwing these topics into an episode or two. Just a thought, and we'll just give it a test run. And maybe it'll be used as a crutch later on when we just run out of ideas of what to talk about during that weekend or week. Do you want to start, baby?
True. Yeah, true dat. True dat, I agree.
You are in rare form today for this podcast. I love it. You're like in that mode where you're slightly sleepy, so you don't give an F about what happens or what you say. It's going to be an exciting episode.
I don't think that's true.
You don't think that's true?
Mm-mm.
No, not at all?
I'm not sleepy. I'm very energetic.
How many fingers am I holding up?
4.
Okay, at least you can see, because that correlates with sleepiness. I don't know, people.
That is definitely made up.
Instead of just lingering on this point, should we get to what we are going to talk about, maybe? You want to take it away, because you were afraid that I was going to speed read through this stuff, so I'm letting you take the reins, my love, my dear.
Nice setup, making me look bad.
I'm not making you look bad. It's true. I would always speed read through certain things when I'm reading it out loud. I sometimes I struggle with keeping up my pace poorly.
That was a great example of what you were saying. It was just, you were trying to talk about how you struggle with words, and while explaining it, you were struggling with words.
This is why one of the reasons you married me, because I provide the goofiness to the relationship, right?
Oh. I'm pretty goofy.
Yeah, but I can be goofy myself, too.
Okay.
Ooh, it's late, folks.
It's 9 o'clock.
Babe, we go to bed at like 9:30 during the weekdays, so my body is normal weekday time. I don't know about you, but you're definitely sleepy because it's your body probably adjusted already to the East Coast time, as I see you. I can tell you're getting a little sleepy. So should we get started now that we're almost 7 minutes into the podcast?
Yeah, and we have had nothing of substance, whatever.
Sustenance.
Okay,
we go through this
sure.
conversation all the time. I think sustenance is like about food and stuff. Okay. I don't want. Okay. All right. Okay.
All right, let's get started.
Let's do this.
So the first topic that we want to talk about is transformation. Isn't that right? That's right. So I will read the prompt, kitties, and let's just perk up our ears and listen real good.
Oh, man. This is going to be a giggly podcast, I can tell you that much. We're talking about serious things, and we're just going to giggle through it.
No, I'm going to be serious reading it.
Okay, be very serious, babe.
Okay, I'll be serious.
I believe in you.
So this first... Okay, I'll be serious. I honestly don't know why I'm laughing.
I don't know either.
Like, nothing is funny. Okay, I'm going to read it. One of the most disorienting things about getting married was that I didn't feel transformed after the ceremony. I had expected and hoped to feel wiser, more enlightened about what lay ahead. Instead, we sat in the rented limo, holding hands, saying, "We did it," as though what had taken place had not quite penetrated us. It had, but so deeply and subtly that we didn't notice at first. Perhaps that's why so many cultures celebrate marriage with intense ritual. You need the line of demarcation of a new life clearly and deeply drawn. It takes a while to realize that although no special wisdom or other observable trait was conferred along with marriage blessing, the two of you are irrevocably embarked on a journey unprecedented in your lives. That's why we need the marriage ceremony, to set in motion the tectonic shifts within. And that's the end of the passage about transformation.
So what do you get from that passage? I have so many questions that I need to write down so I don't forget it. But like the one thing that I sort of get from that is it's kind of true where people come up and ask you all the time. It's like, oh, do you feel different now that you said I do, now that you walk down the aisle? At least during that day, obviously I was like, and I'm assuming you were feeling the same way, like elated that we made this commitment to one another, and we're very excited to take that next step in the rest of our lives together, and we're going to be in it through thick and thin together. But in that moment, I feel like people ask you, and I don't know if they make it seem like they're supposed to be, like some just crazy shift in how you feel, like you're supposed to feel wiser or something. But I don't know, I just felt the same, but I just in a happier state now that I was with you. I mean, did you ever feel wiser after we got married, or you just kind of got tired of that question of do you feel different, when it's kind of like what's supposed to be different? It's supposed to be somewhat the same. If it changes, then that's probably a problem, right?
I didn't really feel different. It's especially not the day of, since the day of is so much, obviously the ceremony is really special, but then there's so much celebration afterwards with family and friends and even people you don't know that well on social media or texting you, or just it's such a happy celebratory time that I feel like I didn't feel really different because real life didn't kick in. Not that real life is like extremely horrible or extremely great. It's just like, you know, the day-to-day routine, but we're doing it together, this married life thing. But I definitely didn't feel different. And I think that I'm wondering if some of that feeling different thing people interpret that meaning like, oh, any problems that you had, or not problems, but like arguments that you may have while dating, or things that are inconsistent in your views or anything like that. If people assume that as soon as you get married, the issues go away because suddenly you're, you know, committed spiritually, legally, and all these other ways. Or I wonder if it's the opposite. People think, oh, you know, we dated, we courted each other, or however people like to say it. And then
Wooed.
Now, yeah, wooed. And now we're married. So like I can relax a little and stop trying to quote unquote impress someone. So I wonder if either of those are part of it. I'm not really sure what people mean when they say like, oh, do you feel different and all of that? But I didn't really. I kind of echo what you said, Adam, about just feeling really happy that we're together in this and we made the commitment and we're in this next stage together.
Aw. I think to piggyback off of that when it comes to feeling different, maybe not in that day, but I think you'll see, or will see, or you'll see it all the time when couples are farther along in their marriage, just because they have actually gained that quote-unquote wisdom that people sometimes expect you to gain it right like a week after you get married. And I wonder if that has to do with the fact that now you are sort of working together, working as a unit, so you understand, you know, communication better. You understand how to work with one another, even though it probably doesn't always work 100% perfectly all the time, because, I mean, if that was the case, marriages would last longer in the U.S., which doesn't seem like it happens. It's still, at 50%? And I think, like, a 50% divorce rate last time I checked. I mean, that's the generic thing that's thrown around. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it is something where people, you know, take it for granted, the fact that, you know, it took this long to get to this point of getting married. You had to put in the time and effort, and at any second something could change, and life comes at you in different ways, and it can put a strain on the relationship. But the only constant, I think, needs to be the two people. It needs to be the pair, and try to support one another. And I think that's the only transformation that really happens in marriage, is that you now become, you're one separately, and then you become, there's two in like boyfriend and girlfriend, then you become one again, where now you actually have to support one another, be there for one another through thick and thin, through all the different types of, you know, sadness that gets thrown your way. You're there for the highs and you're there for the lows, and that, I think, you know, creates that stress on any relationship. But I think that's the main wisdom that you should gain from anything, is just you have to be there. You have to communicate with one another. You have to make sure you're there. I mean, that's the basic, I think anyway, understanding that I would guess from seeing happily married couples.
Yeah, and there's definitely things in addition to communication and being there that I think you can work on together as a couple and as a team to not make it me versus him or me versus her, depending on, who you are, but just focusing. Because I think we got a lot of good advice from people that are happily married and have been happily married and know kind of not what to do, but like signs of a good marriage and like things that you should do to really build that solid relationship. And I remember just some cute things that people wrote at the bridal shower and maybe engagement party, maybe wedding. I don't quite remember, but one of them was like, always kiss goodnight before bed, or like always say I love you, or remember that you're a team. So when, you're arguing about something, try not to think about who's right, but think about what is right for the two of you and like for the future, and think about what you're arguing. Is that going to matter in 1 year, 5 years? Like if you're talking about how you're going to raise your kids or finances or something like that, then yeah, of course that's important and you need to figure out, how to move forward. But if you're fighting about, the silly little things that we fight with people, with friends, with parents, with loved ones, just stuff like that, it's just not worth it. And when you catch yourself, it's easier because then you're like, oh, darn it, yeah, I wasn't supposed to, bring up these silly little conflicts. But that's just part of learning who you are, who your partner is, and like how to communicate without having issues.
And I think something I read, I can't remember exactly where I read it, but I thought it may have been one of the marriage books that we saw or that I read prior to our wedding date. But one of the important things that I saw that I actually sort of resonated with is that you need to, with your partner, instead of picking out the faults, the things that they did wrong throughout, however long you've been there, because I think everybody does it, where things that they do wrong always stay with you, your partner. Like if they upset you, they did something that upset you, it sticks with you because it just seems like that's human nature, is the negative always stays with you versus the positive. And I try my best each and every day just to keep, picking out the positives that I see, that I get excited about from you, my love, that you make me happy. So I always try to remember that you do these little things that always, make me smile. And that's more important than the petty little things that we hold on to that aren't important in the grand scheme of things. I mean, if you put these pettiness over your marriage, I feel like you're not properly weighing. You're being very selfish, I think. Or if you're weighing your ego over, your marriage. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think some of the books that I read also leading up to the wedding, just books I saw online about relationships and marriage and stuff like that, and just things I wanted to read. I remember reading a book where it was a lady who she wasn't a marriage counselor, but she was like helping people struggling in their marriage, or specifically helping women. And it was a really interesting perspective about women's roles in marriage, or I guess in this specific case in heterosexual marriages, since obviously it would be different for a lesbian couple or a gay couple. But in heterosexual marriages, she was talking about how women can do certain things to like bring better energy to the relationship and stuff like that. Just not trying to be the better person, but if things are going wrong, like if your husband is unhappy, trying to be that person who's maybe being more positive, or trying to do certain actions if your spouse like is someone who feels quote unquote their love language is like not receiving actions. What is the word? Oh, acts of kindness, I think. So that was an interesting perspective, but I think in general, that's kind of the approach to do it, not thinking about how can I be right and how can I put the other person down, but thinking about how can I bring them up even when that's the last thing on my mind and I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. But that's obviously something that's not natural, because when you're human, you kind of want to prove that you're right. You want to prove that you're smart. You want to prove you have good ideas sometimes, but that's not the point at all.
I agree. And sometimes I think just in general, I know I personally probably need to work on it, better communicating when I get upset about certain things that aren't necessarily important. It's just sometimes life just gets you down, unfortunately. Even if it's just like some rough day at work, it can sometimes lead into a conversation that you have with your spouse, and that's just unfortunate, and you have to try to, break it off between, work versus when you come home, or outside influences versus your conversation with your significant other. I think it's just sometimes you have to be better at tuning out everything that's going on around you and try to just realize that you're a team and you need to figure it out together, not individually figuring it out on your own and then trying to come together with ideas and then realizing that your ideas don't jive perfectly together, and then you get frustrated.
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't mean to growl or anything. I just was speaking all in one long breath, and I just forgot to breathe. It happens from time to time.
That's important to breathe.
I think I wanted to ask you if that book that you're talking about, did it resonate more by the fact that it was coming from a woman's perspective, that you sort of, because I always wondered if a guy wrote that book, would you feel any different? Like, oh, why is he saying that? Like, oh, it's more on the woman. And I'm curious because I feel like if it was I would resonate more if it was a guy that's gone through all marriage and marriage counseling. I would probably listen to more, because maybe he has a better insight of how men think, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely resonated more because it was written by a woman, because I found that, like you said, if it was a guy saying what women should do or a woman saying what guys should do, I would feel a little bit weird, because that's a really sensitive area to touch, because you don't know necessarily, unless you're, someone that does counseling or therapy or that kind of thing, that you experience that every day. But otherwise, I don't know how someone would have that authority or experience to say, hey, men, this is what women like. Do this.
That just reminded me of the generic thing that you'd see in grade school when they would show you the ads that were directed towards women, made by men, of how women should be a good housewife or something. It was ridiculous stereotypes back in the 40s or 50s. You mentioning that sort of reminded me of that, what it was like back then. You there,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I was just thinking about the book. Another interesting thing that the author was mentioning was that I don't know her exact title, because she wasn't the typical marriage counselor, but it was kind of interesting. She was pretty much hating on marriage counseling, saying that just the way that the sessions are set up and the way that the industry is and kind of the whole process works is a little bit screwed up. And the reason she said that was because in her experience and the clients that she worked with personally, people, and marriage counseling is usually, the husband and the wife, the whole couple, but she usually works with just women, which is another kind of interesting side note. But she was saying that in marriage counseling, primarily, the person leading the session will ask questions that are trying to target what the issue is and what the two people have against each other, or what's wrong. And then you'll say, she never does this. And then the woman may say, oh, he never does this. And then there's so much focus on the negative where you're not, when you start with that, what possible productive way can you move forward besides one person compromising and being like, I'll start doing this. And then the other person says, I'll start doing this. And I think as humans, a lot of times when someone has a grievance against us and they're saying, oh, why don't you ever load the dishwasher like this, or something that seems silly but over time builds up, or how come you do this way, then that not only frustrates the other person who's receiving this kind of nasty, negatively formed feedback, but then also they're not necessarily motivated. Like, it's just like being a kid, honestly, when your parents or your friends make fun of you or say like, oh, you're so this, like as a kid, you're like, okay, I'll keep doing this and be annoying, or I'll keep, not cleaning my room because someone nastily told me to do something a certain way. So I think in relationships, it's kind of similar, because if you keep hearing from your spouse that you do something negatively all the time in their eyes, what motive do you have to get better when you're not getting any positive feedback or anything positive? You're just hearing the negative stuff. How come you don't do this? Why do you do this? And that kind of thing. So anyway, the whole point of the book was to really take that first step. And it was written by women for women. So obviously it's a totally different perspective and people can agree or disagree. But the whole point was that as a woman, as half of the relationship, you should take certain steps to acknowledge that, hey, you're not perfect. Your spouse isn't perfect, but try not to dwell on those and focus on those. And something else that she helped her clients with was really when they were struggling with the relationship, she didn't focus so much on what the issue is, but she tried to bring them back to remind the women she worked with why they fell in love with their husbands, because she truly believed that unless, it was an abusive relationship or an addiction or just something really unhealthy, she believed that if a couple was dating and then they ended up making the mutual decision to get married, she truly believed that there was, with enough communication and all these other factors that come into play, that there was nothing that should break up a marriage, because people already came into that relationship together and anything could be talked through and worked through and that kind of thing. And she had a lot of success stories, which was also positive to see, because she wasn't just spewing on lots of stuff without any viable outcome or positive outcomes.
Yeah, and I think...
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, I'm sure people found it interesting. I did as well, because I remember you telling me that. And I think it's just, like we mentioned all before, is you have to focus on the positives instead of the negatives. And I think in that example you're giving about loading the dishwasher and getting upset and being, poignant at it, just try to think, if you've done that before, have you, after the fact, said to your spouse thank you when they do that? I think that I just know that thank yous go a long way. It's a relationship or any type of relationship. You just say thank you. It just shows an appreciation, and I think it just sort of makes the other person feel good because they made you feel good, kind of. It's sort of a mutual happiness, I guess you could say. That's just what made me think of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think something that helps in general, I struggle with this because I'm very, I don't know if type A is the right word. I don't really know what the whole types are, but I'm very particular and I like things a certain way. So for me, I struggle with, doing things my way and how I grew up doing them. I'm orange.
Isn't that the color? That's the scale personality traits that we learned in our leadership development courses back in college.
I thought it was blue.
I thought blue was more of the creative side. Or maybe yellow maybe yellow is more rigid. I don't remember. You can tell I focus so hard on these in these classes.
But yeah, I'm very particular. So for me, it was hard, especially in the beginning of like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? And I was so focused on these little details. And I think slowly I'm realizing that that doesn't really matter. And I think in the end, what matters is if someone did something that helped you or helped the relationship or helped, the house stay cleaner. It shouldn't be, why did you put the dishes in the dishwasher this way? It should be, hey, thanks for doing that because that helped both of us. In the end, does it matter how they're organized? Not really. I mean, unless the person put one tiny bowl in the dishwasher and then turned it on and just wasted a bunch of water. But like, if they ended up helping put stuff away or did anything around the house or just anything in general that was helpful, I think instead of criticizing and the first words being, why did you do it that way? The first word can be, hey, thank you. And then maybe somewhere down the line be like, oh, hey, I do something this way. Did you ever think about doing it like that? And proposing it in a positive way instead of that negative, why didn't you do this? Which puts extra pressure on someone and makes them already feel like they did something wrong, even though you're just asking an innocent question.
Great point. Always put it in a positive light. I feel like when you put it more of a spin of why don't you do this or do it this way or put the ownership on the other person instead of just making a suggestion coming from your own personal perspective, it leads to better outcomes. And just to touch back on to the thank you thing real quick, I just feel like thank you in and of itself is a good attention diffuser, a good anger diffuser, just because I've known before if we've been angry at one another, I normally try to say, thank you. It normally helps with, easing the tension because you're taking the step to thank the other person. And I just think that's a suggestion out there to make the first step. If somebody else is angry at you for not doing something, maybe show your appreciation that they did something and say thank you. And sorry is always, if it's something you did wrong, sorry is obviously the first step. You don't go up and when you're sorry and say thank you. That's obviously not the proper maneuver. Oh, goodness.
That's true.
There's also
sorry.
Go ahead. The Skype thing is throwing me off because it's slightly delayed, I think. But if you want to touch more on what I was saying, then go for it. Because I had one other question based off of the transformation section that you so eloquently read. There was a section about talking about the ceremony and how we need a ceremony to make it feel real, make it feel important. And I was just curious because you see nowadays that ceremonies go by, the ceremony part, not the reception, not the partying, not the drinking part, but the ceremony part goes by so quickly nowadays. It goes by like 15 minutes, 30 minutes. And I don't want to, say that, the only other example I have is ours that went like close to an hour, and I sort of appreciated the fact. I mean, at the beginning, I was like, oh my goodness, an hour. But when you're, a part of it, you're thinking about it, it's such a beautiful ceremony. It feels more grandiose. It feels more real. It feels like a special moment when you're taking the time to go through all these rituals, even if you're not religious and you don't quite believe in certain things. It still feels just special because you're taking the time and you're putting in an hour and a half into doing these things that, makes it a special day.
Yeah, I would agree with that. A whole another podcast could be talked about more specifics about ceremonies and pros and cons and religion and all the factors that played into choosing a ceremony space and also the actual ceremony, not lineup, but like organization of what goes in what order. But yeah, looking back, I think that, and I thought this throughout the whole planning process, even when I got really frustrated and I was like, you know what, I'll get married wherever, I don't care. I didn't really mean that. I knew what I wanted in my heart, but sometimes when you get frustrated, you say things you don't mean and, you just want the easiest way out possible. But I do appreciate having that tradition because I thought it was really cool. And I think we got feedback from other people that they'd never been to a Ukrainian ceremony or had seen certain aspects of the wedding. So I thought it was cool because I don't know, I had been to a lot of Ukrainian weddings and those ceremonies are really long and there are a lot of really cool traditions that I guess when I was younger, I just assumed that I would have them. But then when I got older and I started dating, I didn't really think as much about that. I was never someone that really, obsessed about planning a wedding and weddings. I kind of just went along with it. And then when the time came, I decided to, I'm engaged. I should probably start planning now. But anyway, long-winded way to say that I agree. It was nice to have a very intense ritual with lots of these some may say quirky tradition, some may say really cool, depending on your perspective and what you were expecting going into it. But the ceremony ends up just being about the couple and that relationship and that beginning. So I don't think it really matters if people think it's too long or don't want to watch it, because it's not about you. Honestly, it's about the couple. And if the couple wants a quick 10 or 15 or 20-minute ceremony and then go to the reception, that's fine. If a couple wants 2-hour ceremony, go for it. And I think it is cool to see in different cultures all of the different types of traditions, because as someone that has a different background, I brought that part to our ceremony, but then you had different aspects that you brought to the table, so kind of just combined everything, and it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool, as you would say. But you mentioned about different ceremonies, and I just wanted to point out that I think India really knows how to do a wedding, because I remember talking to my friend Nikhil, and he would go to his family's weddings in India, and they would take 3 days to do the whole wedding celebration and the whole process. And I think there's one part that he was telling me where I think they parade down like a street, and like the bride and groom are elevated. I want to say that I've seen it. I don't know if it was his wedding specifically, but I've seen it like documentaries and things where they're propped up on elephants or something like that. But they're like dancing in the streets and having a good time, and I just feel like that seems like a great way to celebrate, a wedding, is that everyone's having a great time, but it feels like such a ritual, such a just tradition that people do, and I just feel like they know how to celebrate. I remember him telling me, I was like, holy crap, I don't know if I could do 3 days of how stressful just the wedding day is in general.
Yeah,
planning
that's
one day.
Long time.
I couldn't even imagine planning 3 days of weddingness. That would be a little difficult, to say the least.
Agreed. Something I wanted to say about just thinking about the transformation thing again, I think that's just something that happens naturally throughout the process and getting to know each other more. And I know a lot of people say the first year of marriage, you really learn a lot about each other, and it has a lot of ups and downs because you are navigating this new journey together and this new relationship. So I think expecting to feel totally different after getting married in the ceremony is a little bit silly. I mean, you could feel different. There's actually a few ways that I do feel different that aren't related to our relationship necessarily. But I think the transformation really happens throughout the following years, if that makes sense. Not just, this day, 2000, whatever, you got married and suddenly everything's different. The one thing I mentioned this to a few of my friends, but I've noticed that after getting married, I feel like I always knew that I wanted kids and wanted a family, but I feel like it always felt really distant because, I was someone personally that wanted to have kids after I got married and that kind of thing. But I feel like now that I am married, it doesn't seem so far in the distance. Not to say I'm...
It definitely doesn't feel so far in the distance when you mention it. More and more, it's becoming more and more of a real thing. You're getting more and more baby fever every time we see babies. Not against it. I'm just saying it just happens.
Yeah. I just feel like naturally, since I'm married and that's where I wanted to be whenever I had kids, it just feels like a safer environment, just personally. I know people... all sorts of families out there with all sorts of situations, but personally that's what I wanted, and that just makes me feel, in that sense, almost more transformed from dating, but dating is a different relationship, to being married, and that's usually when people are talking. And then no one really, I don't want to say no one because I don't know other people's relationships, but no one ever asked me when I'm having kids when I was dating. That wasn't really an expectation. But then as soon as you get married, like I remember my mom telling me, there was an older lady at our church that we go to, that I went to growing up and that we got married at. And this older lady told my mom, because my mom mentioned that her daughter, me, was getting married, and the old lady was like, give her 2 years. And my mom was like, no, they're young. They want to enjoy each other and take their time. And the lady was like, give them 2 years. That's what they all say. In 2 years, they have a baby. I It's like, okay, grandma. Not my actual grandma. I don't know who this was, but it's just funny.
Yeah, it just makes, once you, I guess that is sort of the transformation that you could sort of feel throughout, is that it just feels more, having the family part and, having a house together, and that thing feels more of a realistic thing. It feels more real that's definitely going to happen, just because we made the commitment to be with one another. So we're going to make a commitment to have a family with one another, to have a house together and grow old together, sit on rocking chairs with our canes by the rocker. I mean, goals. But I mean,
way down.
Did you get any of those types of questions? Because it seems like it happens when you talk with family, and since you've sort of been meeting with family this past 2 days, have you gotten any baby questions yet?
None from adults, but one of the people that we saw today was my aunt's family, and they have, one of those people has a 1-year-old daughter, and she was just walking around, and she was really cute. And then I was hanging out with my cousin and my mom's goddaughter, and they're both, teenagers, so they're in a different life stage, but they've seen me from, when I was relatively younger, and they're like, oh, and they know that in Ukrainian culture, it's I don't know how it is now, but it used to be where a lot of the women got married a lot younger and had kids younger compared to in the United States, like 20s, all that happened usually. So they were talking to me about when am I going to have kids and all that, and I just felt not pressure, but I was like, really, guys? Like, I just got married a few months ago.
So wait, the 1-year-old baby was asking you this question?
No, while the 1-year-old was running around.
Okay, that makes more sense.
The teenager was like, oh, are you going to have a baby? When do you want a baby? Baby. So...
I mean, to be fair, though, when we walk down a clothing, the baby section in Target or anything, you freak out with all the little baby.
They're so cute. They're so... The newborn onesies, oh my goodness, they're so tiny.
Folks, this is what I hear every time we pass the baby section of any store.
I know I don't have any close friends that are pregnant, but I know some people, like, through social media that I used to be closer with or something like that are pregnant. I'm just like, I just want to send you really cute baby clothes, or like a little hat for your baby maybe, or like little booties. I don't know.
Our kids are going to be dressed so fly. From the clothes that I've seen you point out that you want them to wear, I'm like, oh my goodness, they're going to be like a little Abercrombie and Fitch model, it seems like. They're going to be so preppy.
Yep, if you want to see what our future children will wear, or for a boy, just Google preppy little boy clothes, and the little overalls, the little polo. Oh my god, I just saw one. The little boy is wearing a little hat, like old man hat, and he's wearing a little vest, like he wore at the wedding.
Very cute. Sure, I guess we'll make the agreement that when we go to public places, we can dress up our kid to look cute. But when they come home, I'm just going to let them just probably run around in shorts and nothing else.
Yeah, that's good. They just got to look cute in public. At home, they can wear whatever they want.
Because I know it runs in our family that little kids don't like to wear clothing at any point. It seems like when they're really little, they just like run around bare feet and shorts. All of our
kids just running around naked.
Not naked, except for there are stories of me running around naked in my house when I was little, just because I felt it feels so freeing.
All right, that makes sense.
Great way to just end the podcast. Talk about me as a little baby running around naked. But actually, one thing I did want to touch on that I had circled in my little notepad that I'm writing on to make sure I don't forget anything. But I think this was a good conversation that I heard, that surprisingly we heard on the radio one day, where they were talking about love you versus I love you, and how a lot of times it seems like we just casually throw out love you instead of making it more personal by saying I love you. And I just felt like that's such a pertinent point to make, that, you know, putting the I means something in front of I love you means that I love the other person that you're talking to. And I just think that means more than just saying love you before you head out for the day, before you just subconsciously say it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Because, I mean, you said it. It's just more personable and sounds more sincere. Especially in the tone that it's usually said. Usually people aren't like, love you. They're like, love you. It's just more rushed.
Yeah, and it makes it seem like it sounds more of just like a goodbye, or just a bye, like it's something that you just say or you have to say, whereas I love you feels more personable, as I've been saying. But it just, I don't know, it just goes back to the point of how maybe sometimes we take things for granted, sometimes we just go with the flow and don't realize that, you know, we need to keep constantly working at this marriage thing, this just relationship thing, whether it is marriage, whether it's friendships, or, you know, relationships that you're in, boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever other type of relationships there are. I think you always have to sort of work at it and just can't take it for granted.
Agreed. And I think just in life, you shouldn't take for granted, not to be like morbid or anything like that, but you shouldn't take things for granted. I mean, if you have the chance to tell someone, I love you, anything, even just love you, but if you have the chance to say that, I think you should, because you never know. And it's good to keep that positivity and that love in the air, because love is what makes our hearts happy. Like a Coach bag, don't get me wrong. A Coach bag looks real nice on my arm.
Damn,
that's not what makes my heart happy. No, I'm just saying, like, things may look nice on the outside and, like, be fancy and all that, but in the end, what really makes her soul happy, I don't think it's the stuff, because that's why you see these articles where people are, you know, super rich executives, top of the corporate ladder and all of that, but they're depressed or not happy or feel unfulfilled. And I think that's because sometimes as humans we all lose track of, you know, focusing on the relationships and the love and the reason that humans are the way they are, because we thrive on community and family and just that sort of thing.
But people start focusing now, it seems like, more on the materialistic things of making more money, you know, having the fancy car, having the fancy this thing, where realistically I think studies have shown that what makes people happier is just being around loved ones, being with loved ones, and, you know, having loving conversations. Because a lot of times when you're going for materialistic things, you're going to end up being around materialistic people, and a lot of times those materialistic people aren't the best people. There can be, I'm going to guess, pretty rude types of people.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Especially like when you're trying to work your way to the top of like a corporate ladder, and you are part of the system where it seems like you have to be dressed super fancy, you have to be wearing fancy watches, you have to be, you know, driving a fancy car. It's sort of a lot of times it seems like those types of businesses are, you know, cutthroat, and you have to, you know, put somebody down to get your way or get to the top, and that just seems counterproductive. That seems just counterintuitive to the way that we actually are, because you wouldn't want that to happen to you, so why are you doing it to somebody else?
Yeah, that is a good point.
Thank you.
Just a part of society that I don't understand either, but some things just, I guess, evolves to be a certain way, and I don't know how to change a whole system.
Yeah, and I think it's just the area that you're in. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just talking up Colorado so much, but it just seems like out here people are somewhat friendlier, because they're not going against running a mile a minute, trying to just have a rat race constantly with work. They spend more time outdoors anyway, and I don't know, it just seems like there's just nice people. Funny enough, since I don't know if you noticed, I got my hair cut, but there's actually, the person cutting my hair mentioned that there's a magazine that comes out every week that gives you 10 days worth of things that are going on in Denver, so I'll have to show you that when you get back. If we ever run out of
nice.
things to do, we'll just look at this magazine. I forget what it's called right now off the top of my head. Maybe West End? Maybe that's what it's called. I think it's in the car. So
We'll definitely have to check it out.
for sure. I think there was like a beer fest this weekend, but I didn't go. I realize I don't go to many things without you. I just sit around.
No.
I don't do as much adventurous things because it's not nearly as fun. And I don't know that many people besides you, so I'm just sitting here. Well, I think we've been at it for about 50 minutes, so I think it's time to wrap this bad boy up. Babe, did you want to...
Cut it all.
Did you want to say anything to the hot listeners before we wrap this thing up?
Thanks for listening, and I hope you experience a personal transformation in your own life as well.
We hope that you transform throughout this 50 minutes worth of a podcast to
That's a lot of pressure.
liking us to absolutely loving us. I think it'll happen. Guaranteed. 100% guarantee. But
Love it.
nevertheless, you can find us on Twitter at HotPod. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/HotPod. You can email us questions, hotpod@gmail.com. We'd be happy to take them onto the episode and record and answer the questions live. The words did not work for me that well on that section of speaking right there. But yeah, remember, if you're listening to us on iTunes, please scroll down in the feed, give us a 5-star rating. We're already at 20 reviews. Do you believe that, babe? That's pretty impressive. I'm pretty happy. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I saw that. I like that.
Only about a month, so that's it. That's exciting. So please keep rating us. Maybe more and more people will find us, and they'll enjoy these cute little conversations that we have. We appreciate everybody listening. Remember, please share it with your friends that you think will enjoy it, or family. But other than that, I think it's time to say bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.